Thank You White Knights is supported by ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, manufacturers and distributors of wellness products for the health conscious such as MMS, MMS2, DMSO, MSM, Lugol's iodine and colloidal silver at ExclusiveWellnessClub.com. International shipping outside the United States available. Find the clickable link below.
Making headlines for this week of June the 1st. Builder busted. World's power brokers and elites gather to map out their agenda or to plan their escape. Empire of the City, digging into a bit more of the background of the cabal's infrastructure of enslavement and how the roots of Admiralty law began. Disclosure in Canada. They say follow the money, but to coin a phrase, minted in Canada may have a whole new perspective on disclosure. And Eurovision fever in Sweden. Sweden's song wins with record votes. Were viewers resonating to a deeper spiritual message within the song?
With news around, upon, within, and beyond our planet, the program making disclosure official. This is Cosmic Vision News. Here is Jeffrey West.
Now underway at a Marriott Hotel in Chantilly, Virginia, is the formerly secret meeting known as Bilderberg. The name of this meeting derives itself from the hotel of where the first meeting took place in the Netherlands back in the 50s. The mainstream media is still mostly ignoring the event, although there are a few now covering it. You may remember last week CVN reporting on the G8 and NATO meetings, how these leaders meet publicly in very central and public locations with full access to the media, costing millions, if not billions in dollars, of useless planning, security, and the like, when the meeting would have been better held upon a ship out in the ocean. It is known that there are a few journalists who have been following Bilderberg for years. James P. Tucker of AmericanFreePress.net was one of the original champions of this cause, as is Daniel Estulin. Joining the bandwagon more recently is Alex Jones. Jones is very vocal in speaking up about this group, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. Jones and other alternative media are doing a better job this year of making people aware of what the planned agenda of this secret group really is. The problem, however, is that the alternative media now are not fully aware of the shifts in human and planetary consciousness now underway. They are fulfilling an important role, but the role has shifted even more, to the point where many of the alternative media cannot keep up because they have become preoccupied with exposing the group through energies that could be described as more vengeful, as opposed to focusing and utilizing the planetary energies to foster an environment of greater peaceful change, accountability, and transparency. Based on information provided recently by both inside sources, galactic families, and celestials alike, it seems pretty clear to many that regardless of what agenda this group comes up with, their plans will never see the light of day. In fact, one may even be so bold as to suggest that this year's meeting will not be about mounting an offense upon the world, but rather about how to mount a defense against not only the galactic families, but the sacred, secret societies that are creating the new economy, the BRICS alliance of countries, and the people themselves, who are now courageously standing up and speaking out. The bet might be that there is more tension and panic in those secret meetings this year than ever before. This year, approximately 150 world's elitists will gather again to plan their agenda for the coming year and begin filtering it out to all within the global networks. Foster Gamble, in his documentary Thrive, sums it up this way.
Control the corporate and banking interests that carry out the sinister scheme that is destroying so many lives. Those secretly driving the agenda have been known by many names. Leaked reports confirm that they meet throughout the world behind closed doors to discuss their agenda. Then, like clockwork, their plans begin to show up in the media, finance, corporate, government, and military arenas. Of course, not everyone involved in these groups is in on the decision-making. There is a hierarchy of knowledge and participation.
Bilderberg has tried to pass itself off almost as a group of elders just having a friendly get-together, but the secrecy surrounding the event is indication enough that there must be much more taking place behind those closed doors. RT.com reports the event as more significant. It has been speculated that Bilderberg is the policy group that has been responsible for future leaders being installed, and there is evidence to support this argument in the UK, the US, and Canada. Steve Watson, contributor to Infowars.com, compares the significance of those attending this meeting to the lack of interest in the mainstream media, who apparently are more interested in covering the fact that Justin Bieber almost knocked himself out walking into a door. Huh? That's mainstream journalism at its finest. While the mainstream media covers the economic crises, one wonders if the banking, financial, and other leaders of all the major banks are meeting to discuss anything, and they are, right here at Bilderberg. Here is a summary of those in attendance. According to Watson, those debating policy at this year's meeting will be Eric Schmidt, Executive Chairman of Google, Craig J. Mundy, Chief Research and Strategy Officer at Microsoft, Reid Hoffman, co-founder and executive chair of LinkedIn. Another notable attendee is Peter Thiel, head of Clarium Capital, who provided the financial muscle for online ventures like Facebook and PayPal, as well as LinkedIn and Friendster. Many of the world's highest representatives for many of the world's biggest social media companies all together in the same room for a secret, friendly chat. This alone should be of interest to the media. Others in attendance include the Vice President of the European Commission, the Director General of the World Trade Organization, the President of the World Bank, the Vice Chair of the World Economic Forum, the White House National Security Advisor, the Commander of U.S. Cybercom, and the National Security Administration, representatives from every major U.S. think tank, senior figures from banks in Canada, Spain, Germany, Austria, Brazil, chairmen from Barclays Bank, HSBC, Goldman Sachs, TD Financial, and the vice chair of Citigroup. There are ministers of finance from France, Poland, and Ireland, distinguished professors in economics, finance journalists from the Financial Times, The Economist, and the Wall Street Journal, the head of economic and foreign affairs for Turkey. There are members of royalty from Belgium and the Netherlands. And don't forget the group of high-ranking politicians from countries like Germany, Russia, Italy, China, the UK, Austria, Canada, Spain, Ireland, and this is only the beginning. The summary for this show will have links to various articles and information for those wishing to learn more about this group and to begin knowing what questions to ask their own parliamentary reps. CBN is choosing not to focus on some of the negative comments already being reported from inside the meeting, preferring instead to remain more in the observer position and to reinforce the need to focus on the positive in the midst of the current changes from what we have been experiencing. Kimberly Gamble shares her desire to focus more on the positive in the movie Thrive.
I personally used to try to justify how the same people consistently ended up with more money and more control by thinking they must just be taking advantage of the situation, but not actually causing it. But after nearly a decade of putting the issues and the evidence together, I am convinced it is not random, and that a few very powerful banking elite families and their political and corporate partners do have an agenda to dominate and control the rest of us. Once I got the reality and the scope of the agenda, I really had to think, how much do I want to know about this? Do I want to focus on the worst of what human beings are capable of? I decided it is worth knowing who these people are and how their organizations operate, because on the other side of the rage and the sadness are clarity and strength, the power we have to focus our efforts effectively now that we understand what's really going on.
In a recent message from the Galactic Federation via Mike Quincy, this may be a sneak peek into what may unfold for this group in the coming short period.
The way matters are shaping up, it is likely that disclosure will occur later than we would have liked. There could be a point reached when we will have to wait for the governmental changes to first take effect. Do not worry, however, as we have always allowed for such possibilities. You are moving into the month of the year that is going to be the time of a new beginning. You will read the signs and see the outcome and know that your long wait is over. Events will suddenly take off and you will know that a new period of activity has started. Your current understanding regarding the changes is clouded by the number of different ones that are expected. Also, the timing is now becoming so tight that no sooner will you witness one event, another shall immediately follow. They will be hectic times, but also most welcome, as you will witness events as they occur. Coverage of them will be extensive, as we wish for all people to be aware of what is taking place in your name. The aim is to bring you into the picture so that you can inform others of what is transpiring. However, we will eventually install a system of communication that covers everyone's needs. In the long term, we wish to see services centralised and available free to everyone. That will include transport of many types that will differ according to your needs. Behind these intentions is the use of free energy that positively abounds everywhere in the universe. One day in the future, you shall cease to compete with one another to exist, and neither will you continue to have a need for money. All of those bothersome things that bring about difficulties in your life will gradually vanish, particularly with the changes in your physical body. They will leave you with one that always remains healthy and is not subject to the same needs as your old, heavy, physical body. Much will be done instantaneously through your power of thought that will ever keep increasing. Life will become full of excitement and happiness and totally fulfilling. You must, however, give time for these things to be developed, but be assured they will be yours.
Expect a lot of info to come out over the coming days, and certainly with the energies expected during June, including a Venus transit across the Sun and a lunar eclipse early in the month, you can be sure that the coming month is going to rock the worlds of friends and foes alike as we shatter the illusions to move forward in creation of the new future based in love and light. It was Johann Wolfgang von Goethe who was accredited with saying that none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe that they are free. It is still challenging for many to conceive that we are not alone and that there has been contact with galactic families for decades at the very least. Preparing humanity, especially in North America where the greatest censorship of knowledge has occurred, means helping North Americans to first see how their rights and privileges have been truly stripped away and that they never were as free as they were led to believe. By controlling the global economy, they were able to keep other countries in poverty to support the illusion that North Americans and Europeans had it made and that they should be grateful for what they have. The only way to open the minds of the people to something better and greater beyond was to fully reveal all that was preventing humans worldwide from knowing the greatest things about themselves, their connection to others, to their planet, and now to their galactic families. The world is realizing now that the banking system is criminally fraudulent. The people are realizing that they want change, but do not fully know how to create it. People of the world are beginning to understand how to use the energies that are part of the oneness of life to focus an intention on creating a world of harmony, peace, and abundance for all. Part of this means revising our current understanding of what law is. The world will soon enough begin to learn that law, as we currently know it, is truly not law. Humanity will soon begin to learn about much greater law, known as universal law, divine law, and others. These are laws that cannot be changed or modified. Contrary to the belief of a brainwashed humanity, the current system of law is in fact not law at all. It is a set of rules that have been given the force of law, but those rules can be changed at will by any who claim an authority to do so. This system of law is called Admiralty Law. It is the law of the sea and historically was applied for commercial business, as the sea was the primary form of transportation years ago. This law applies to commercial entities and commercial contracts. The trick has come in the form of very sneaky and fraudulent maneuvers to get people to consent into a corporate fiction identity so these rules could be enforced upon humans, thus enslaving humanity. Before going into the lies of Admiralty law, it may help to understand a bit of the history that took place to allow the institution of law to be created and imposed upon humanity. A long history of laying the infrastructure took place to create what has been called the Empire of the City. A documentary outlining the larger history of this is available on YouTube, but a short clip describes this empire of city-states, its infrastructure, and begins to open many questions.
The answer to this puzzling question can be found within the boundaries of 3 of the world's most powerful cities. Those 3 cities belong to no nation and pay no taxes. They are Washington's District of Columbia, which is not part of the city of Washington or of the United States, the inner city of London, which is not part of London or England, and Vatican City, which is not part of Rome or Italy. These cities, called city-states, have their own independent flag, their own separate laws, and their own separate identity.
Vatican City is in fact a state, the smallest principality in the world. It lies on the banks of the Tiber, completely surrounded by the city of Rome. Its status as a separate state emerged from the Lateran Agreements of February 1929. It has its own newspaper, postal service, radio and television station, its own flag, and a population of about 1,000.
The Vatican also has its own army of Swiss guards, and it even has its own prison. The Vatican rules over approximately 2 billion of the world's 6.1 billion people. The colossal wealth of the Vatican includes enormous investments with the Rothschilds in Britain, France, and the USA, and with giant oil and weapons corporations like Shell and General Electric. The Vatican solid gold bullion worth billions is stored with the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England and the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank. The Catholic Church is the biggest financial power, wealth accumulator, and property owner in existence, possessing more material wealth than any bank, corporation, giant trust, or government anywhere on the globe. The Pope, who is the visible ruler of this colossal global wealth, is one of the richest men on earth. While 2/3 of the world earns less than $2 a day, and 1/5 of the world is underfed or starving to death, the Vatican hoards the world's wealth, profits from it on the stock market, and at the same time preaches about giving. How did the Pope and Vatican accumulate all that wealth over the millennium? One method was to put a price tag on sin. Many bishops and popes actively marketed guilt, sin, and fear for profit by selling indulgences. Worshippers were encouraged to prepay for sins they hadn't yet committed and get pardoned ahead of time. Those who didn't pay up risked eternal damnation in Satan's oven. Pope Leo X rebuilt St. Peter's Basilica, selling tickets out of hell and tickets to heaven. During the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church not only hoarded the wealth they collected from the poor, but hoarded knowledge. They kept the masses ignorant and in the dark by denying them a basic education. Vatican City, London's inner city, is also a privately owned corporation or city-state, located right smack in the heart of Greater London. It became a sovereign state in 1694 when King William III of Orange privatized and turned the Bank of England over to the bankers. By 1812, Nathan Rothschild crashed the English stock market and scammed control of the Bank of England. Today, the city-state of London is the world's financial power center and the wealthiest square mile on the face of the earth. It houses the Rothschild-controlled Bank of England, Lloyd's of London, the London Stock Exchange, all British banks, the branch offices of 385 foreign banks, and 70 U.S. banks. It has its own courts, its own laws, its own flag, and its own police force. It's not part of Greater London or England or the British Commonwealth and pays no taxes. The city-state of London houses Fleet Street's newspaper and publishing monopolies. It is also the headquarters for worldwide English Freemasonry and headquarters for the worldwide money cartel known as the Crown. Contrary to popular belief, the Crown is not the royal family or the British monarch. The Crown is the private corporate city-state of London. It has a council of 12 members who rule the corporation under a mayor called the Lord Mayor. The Lord Mayor and his 12-member council serve as proxies or representatives who sit in for 13 of the world's wealthiest, most powerful banking families. This ring of 13 ruling families includes the Rothschild family, the Warburg family, the Oppenheimer family, and the Schiff family. These families and their descendants run the Crown Corporation of London. The Crown Corporation holds the title to worldwide Crown land in Crown colonies like Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. The British Parliament and the British Prime Minister serve as a public front for the hidden power of these ruling Crown families.
Within the boundaries of London City is the Knights Templar Church, part of the Vatican banking cartel. Within this church lies the infrastructure that has contributed to the enslavement of humanity and our planet. The Bar Association, or British Accreditation Registry, is the system by which lawyers are recognized, those who have been specially trained in using certain language and maneuvering within their created system while under the oath to serve that system. Every country that has a franchise of the Bar Association has a similar oath, although there may exist localized variations. Technically, a commercial entity cannot take legal action upon a sovereign human. Admiralty law was only for commercial business. Therefore, a plan was necessary to trick people into giving away their sovereign human status in order to participate within this system as a commercial entity. CVN played an audio clip about 5 weeks ago introducing people to their corporate fiction identity. This identity is born the moment the birth of that individual is registered. At the moment anything is registered, it then becomes a ward of the state, be it a child, be it a car, be it a house, and at that point the individual, just like the property, becomes commercial. To be fair, it was not the fault of the parents, because they didn't know this. They were told that they had to do this, or there would be fines or punishments under their rules. The more an individual chooses to live under one's corporate fiction, the more one is enslaved to the system of debt and fear created by this group. A fraudulent law was used to force people to do something that they would not have otherwise done had they known what was going on. This amounts to extortion under the threat of their law or their rules. Every time you sign your name to any document bearing your corporate fiction identity, you are consenting to that identity, and thus to all the taxes, fines, punishments, frauds, and crimes that have been imposed upon humanity worldwide through commercial law. A story reported by Exopolitics last year revealed a court case in the UK where John Anthony Hill apparently proved in court that the Queen is no longer a valid monarch because she swore an oath to uphold the laws of God with her hand upon a Bible that declared man-made law forbidden. Upon giving royal assent to her first piece of man-made legislation, she forfeited her legitimacy. The impact of this ruling is profound because it means that all public servants in many countries, including Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and others, are in violation of their oaths in enforcing this fraudulent commercial law upon fellow humans. If humans truly understood just how enslaved they have been, they would have risen up ages ago and demanded resignations of politicians and public servants for not honoring their oath to uphold the laws of God. This is the illusion of law, for in truth, law is that which is immutable or cannot be changed. What is commonly known today as common law existed in several other forms historically long before Admiralty law. The basic premise of this law is harm no one, harm no personal property, and be honorable and fair in all dealings and interactions. If you truly want to grasp just how complicated, convoluted, and corrupt the system of Admiralty law is, one has to go no further than to look at the recent court ruling of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Russia Today reported on May 28th that Julian Assange lost his extradition hearing to Sweden. According to RT.com, this is why. According to UK legislation, the extradition order placed against Assange was invalid because the Swedish prosecutor who issued it acted beyond his jurisdiction. Batten's view was echoed by the Supreme Judge Lady Hale, who says that the term judicial authority is restricted to court, tribunal, judge, or magistrates only. In Assange's hearing, the judges cited that the Venice Convention, in which a judicial authority under the broader French definition of the word also encompassed prosecutors. Although our own Parliament and our own government minister believe a judicial authority means a proper court or a proper judge, that was overturned, and it was decided that the meaning of the word in French was actually what mattered, Batten told RT. He added that it means that now English law has been decided on the meaning of a French word. Okay, so you have an Australian citizen accused of committing an international crime by the US for leaking documents, who is being held in a UK detention center, which does not have extradition to the US. The citizen is then accused of a rape in Sweden, a country where it is very easy for a woman to claim rape against a man, and a country that does allow extradition to the US. And the decision for which all this becomes possible is based on the interpretation of a French word. It appears the reason Sweden is pushing for the rape extradition is to get Assange to Sweden so that he can be turned over to the US. Expensive lawyers wasting thousands of hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to argue about the interpretation of a word and whether it applies to Australian law, US law, Swedish law, or UK law, when all that had to be decided really was whether or not physical harm was involved, harm to personal property, or whether there was a dishonored business contract. If that does not tell you how fraudulent this system is, I'm not sure what will. Law is not something that can be argued and changed at the whim of any individual or group. The movie, The Corporation, in 2003, points out a fact that many are not aware of. The corporation is, in fact, legally bound to put its bottom line ahead of everything else, and this includes the public and planetary good. It is this kind of legislation that clearly highlights the path of planetary destruction that has taken place over the last 50 years. It also clearly points out the conflict of interest between profit, care for fellow humans, and care for our planet. Although there are bigger changes that the mainstream media are not yet fully addressing, there are also smaller changes that demonstrate how human and planetary consciousness is moving forward. In a related legal story, Jane O'Brien from the BBC Bureau in Washington reported on May 20th that in the coming weeks, at least 6 U.S. states are expected to pass legislation protecting companies that value their social impact as much as their bottom line. The legislation will allow businesses and corporations to be designated as benefit corporations, and with such designation will receive protection from any legal actions resulting from decisions that are not made in the financial interests of its shareholders. Of the states soon to offer this designation, California and New York are among them, and between all of the states involved are responsible for at least a third of America's annual economic output, making their participation in this very significant. Russia Today, RT.com, reported on May 25th that Russian President Vladimir Putin has now set an agenda for his first whirlwind foreign relations trip. Putin will be traveling to Belarus on May 31st, and then to Germany at the request of German Chancellor Angela Merkel, followed by a meeting with the new French President François Hollande. Political pundits are going crazy, attempting to speculate on the significance of this trip and what it may mean for the future of Russia's foreign policy. Good luck. Very few pundits, if any, are able to grasp anything remotely related to the changes now taking place on the planet and within human and planetary consciousness. They are desperately trying to put this trip into their limited view of how they are viewing the world, a view that is now rapidly collapsing worldwide. Putin's visit to Belarus is aimed to signal strong support for the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko for allowing the execution of 2 men responsible for a subway bombing in the capital, Minsk, which left 15 dead and over 200 injured. The strong condemnation by the EU in this case may be cause to suggest that the executed men were in collaboration with the Eurobanking cartel. After this, it will be on to the meeting in Germany. During his first term as president, Putin had very good relations with former Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, who is now the chairman of the board of Nord Stream AG, a project initially launched by Putin and Schröder. One can only speculate what Putin will have to say to Ms. Merkel on this trip. CBN reported last week how Putin has called out the elitists and their New World Order. CBN has also reported numerous sources as saying that the BRICS alliance of countries was now proposing a new economic model, one with currencies that are backed by precious metals or other resources. It is very possible that Putin may start coming down a bit harder on Germany because Germany is primarily the financial backbone of the Eurozone project. Germany has reason to be concerned, as Russia's financial situation is squeaky clean, while oil revenues and an improved business climate are a natural magnet for investment. RT.com writes that Putin's upcoming European tour, while serving as an opportunity to start the ball rolling on the foreign front, will also be a chance to stimulate the global markets and get the global economy onto the right track. This could be the financial alliance that has now been created. CBN speculates that perhaps this is why Putin did not attend the G8. If both leaders, Obama being the other, are truly working to bring in a better system, it might appear that Putin is trying to go after the elitists from an economic standpoint, while Obama seems to neutralize the cabal's military establishment and bring together the unified forces to police the transition. It is also no surprise, again, why the Western media is so quick to demonize Putin and also Obama. In his weekly update message, former East-West Bureau Chief for Forbes magazine Benjamin Fulford writes that the final showdown in the ongoing financial war is appearing imminent. The 140-nation BRICS alliance is preparing to offer to buy up all cash U.S. dollars and replace them with a new currency backed by a basket of commodities, including precious metals, according to multiple sources. After that move, any money printed by the U.S. Federal Reserve Board crime syndicate would not be accepted as currency by the 140-nation group. This would force an end game for the criminal cabal that illegally seized power in the United States. Before that move, though, there will be a 5-day bank holiday in Europe, followed by the end of the euro and the reintroduction of old national currencies like the Deutschmark and the drachma, according to Rothschild family sources. Regarding the situation in Europe, we notice most of the reporting about the financial crisis there leaves out the elephant in the living room, that being the 140-nation BRICS alliance. AmericanFreePress.net reported on May 21st that the way the Western media portrays Putin is a tissue of lies deliberately engineered to place the West in conflict with Russia. The website emphasizes that this conflict can be best seen in statements by Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney, who has described Russia as being the greatest threat to the U.S. According to the reporter of the story, from neocons to liberals, there has been a consistent drumbeat of portraying Russia as the old Soviet empire getting ready to strike back under the leadership of former KGB officer Putin. Although Putin has indicated his desire to build strong alliances with the West based on mutual respect and trust, the response by the West has been to demonize him more. This may indicate their fear in realizing that they no longer have the money nor resources to maintain their control of the global structure. Putin has transformed Russia, including its religion. Putin's mother was Christian, and under his leadership, Christianity has thrived. As mentioned earlier, Putin has had a big role in transforming the Russian economy and boosting its status as a global energy power, and this has made him an enemy of the big Western oil and gas companies. There is fear-mongering that Russia will leverage its energy power to blackmail Europe. It could also be speculated that he will leverage that power to bring countries into a new economy and further away from the control of the elitist banksters. Putin has come out hitting hard, saying that Washington has no right to lecture Russia about democracy, while it itself consistently breaks international law. So if the elitist establishment and its media are coming out hard against Putin and trying to report that Russia is a severe threat, as Romney says, why would there be reports of Russian troops training in Denver, as was covered last week on CVN? If the elitist establishment is attempting to demonize Putin and his policies, then it is pretty clear that he represents a threat to their interests. Therefore, if there are troops on U.S. soil, they are not there to fulfill the agenda of the elitists, which may open a door to speculation that something bigger is indeed beginning to formulate. As it was Obama who has been issuing the series of executive orders lately, including the alleged visa waiver reported last week, this may lend some credibility that Obama and Putin are working behind the scenes to bring down this structure of global enslavement and control. As cracks continue to break open within more and more of the leadership institutions around the world, the Vatican is finding itself far from immune with a number of its own scandals that could be loosely compared to a Hollywood thriller. And so it should be. CBS News reported on May 26th via an article through the Associated Press that the personal butler of Pope Benedict has been arrested, accused of having documents he had no business having in his Vatican City apartment. Paolo Gabriele, 46 and father of 3, is one of the few members of the papal household. His arrest is just a part of one of the most explosive weeks in recent Vatican history. Recently, the Vatican Bank, known in Italian as the IOR, has been trying to restore its reputation after charges of corruption and money laundering resulted in an embarrassing downgrade of its credit rating. In July, the IOR is to find out if its recent changes comply with the financial transparency criteria of a Council of Europe to restore itself to the white list of countries that share financial info to fight tax evasion. The controversy was inflamed more with the publication of a book of leaked Vatican information highlighting corruption at the highest levels of Catholic governance and power struggles. In a memorandum recently obtained by the Associated Press, the IOR issued a scathing denunciation of President Gotti Tedeschi. The memorandum explains that he was fired for routinely missing board meetings, failure to do his job, failure to defend the bank, and displayed progressively erratic behavior, leading to polarization of employees. His name has also been put forth as one of those who leaked documents for the book. Gabriele is in detention in Vatican City, awaiting trial under the Vatican's own judicial system. This has the potential to radically shake to the core the beliefs of many that the Church is truly operating in divine honor. The Vatican already sits on some of the greatest wealth on the planet while routinely asking poorer parishioners to donate to the Church to pay for extravagant places of worship and many other excessive displays in exchange for their entry into God's favor. According to Cardinal Paolo Sardi, the former number 2 official in the Vatican Secretariat of State, in a letter issued to the Pope in 2009, Sardi wrote that for some time and in various parts of the Church, criticism, even by the faithful, has been growing about the lack of coordination and confusion that reign at its center. In the end, the Vatican may soon realize that it is, above all, that God's will be done, and perhaps the meek and poor shall indeed inherit the earth from the elitists and those who have enslaved and controlled humanity. In these times of rising energies, shifts in consciousness, and global changes, it is easy to get caught up in the desire and the excitement to communicate all that is happening. As is common among human communication, and especially in 3D, we have a tendency to not only over-communicate to people we love, but in listening, we have a tendency to judge those communicating with us. We are all experiencing the changes in uniquely different yet equally beautiful ways relative to where one is on his or her personal journey. A message from the Galactic Federation via Greg Giles on May 31st offers some gentle guidance for consideration. Straight communication is the procedure when you wish to relay your thoughts clearly and concisely without any risk of confusion and misunderstanding. There are times we observe your posts and comments in the public forums of your online social networks where we perceive difficulties in your communications with each other. What we are suggesting is a much more direct form of communication between each of you through the means of word choice. What we would like to see is an improved form of communication necessitated by a more concise use of the language you speak. The end result would be much clearer communications between you. We would like to see each of you begin to choose words that cut through the murky waters of confusion and rhetoric. We would like to see you each make your points to each other much more clearly and much more succinctly. Getting to the point faster and explaining your point of view much more briefly are the improvements that we feel will benefit you in the forms of better communications and a reduction in the amount of misunderstandings and, at times, confusion. Some recent events involving miscommunication between lightworkers was addressed on last Monday's An Hour with an Angel. In that program, Archangel Michael, via Linda Dillon, offers the following for reflection.
If you say, I will believe this because it is based on informants, on secret information, on whistleblower, on insider information, I will believe this because it is human, but I will not believe this because it is heavenly and divine, that it comes from the company of heaven, or I will not believe this because it comes from these star beings who may wish to eat us. Where is your discernment? And where? Where is your heart? Where is the love that is the key and the core of who you are? All information, all knowing, whether it was completely accurate, slightly off, it didn't matter, because it was important that the collective have a place to learn, to read, to discern, to share information. Now you have evolved. You have grown, and you have grown magnificently. We are so proud of you. But the next step in that evolution is your discernment, never judgment, because judgment is what has been taking place. Judgment is saying this person is wrong, therefore they are not holy or sacred or good. Discernment says this piece of information resonates with me. It is that compassion, is collective compassion at work. So you take the information not because the rest of it is untrue, incorrect, but because of your own path, your own journey, and where you are. It speaks to you. It resonates within you. It is raising your vibration. That is the litmus test. Does this make me feel loving? Does this make me feel that I am on my ascension journey, that it is raising my vibration? It does not matter whether it is a commentary, an editorial, a whistleblower piece, or a piece of channeling. Does it make me feel closer to one? If the answer is no, then let it go.
Earlier, in that same program, Jesus Sananda also offered some words emphasizing the importance at this critical time of staying in a forgiving state of awareness, being able to forgive the energies of fear that come up in everyone from time to time.
I come to speak to you about forgiving, not forgiveness, but forgiving as an action and as a state of being. For as you advance and expand, your capacity to stay in the heart of forgiving is infinite. That is important. It is critical, and it is part of the shift to the place of love. You are in the midst of massive change, more significant and more massive than most of you have ever dreamt of or are even dreaming of. It is not cataclysm. It is miraculous. It is expansive. It is inclusive. But in that change, if fear arises, and if you are then in a place of forgiving, then you forgive the fear and you reassure not only your sweet self, but all concerned. If people are assuming certain scenarios and you bring forgiving into it, it dissipates the energy. Forgiving is one of the cornerstones of being able to live and be part of the collective. In the healing, your starseed self, many of the rays that have penetrated you on board ship were the rays of forgiveness and the awakening of this state of forgiving.
Regardless of the source, and regardless of the message, the emphasis is on each individual finding the right information that is most relevant to him or her in that moment to allow that individual to move forward in the highest service for him or herself, for humanity, for our planet, and for our galactic families in helping to co-create the new world that we wish to experience. It has been reported over the last few weeks on CVN that disclosure may not be one big announcement from one or more leaders of the world, but rather that it will come in smaller steps, similar to Will Smith's disclosure of the conversation with Obama. In a video on the website for Lady Dragon, a Canadian lightworker living in Quebec, and a number of other sites, there comes this week a disclosure story minted in Canada. The Canadian Mint, the institution responsible for the minting of coins, appears to have made its own disclosure announcement of the existence of our galactic families, although perhaps that wasn't their intention. According to CompassCreative.ca, the website for the designer of the coin, Jason Bowen, the story was to tell the history of the Canadian waterways, from transportation exploration to sustenance and leisure. The coin depicts a boy on a peaceful canoe ride reaching his hand to touch the water and into the past. In a beautifully rendered twist, the reflection is a native man paddling a goods-laden canoe. If one looks closely enough, it is perhaps possible to see the young child. What makes it noticeable to those who know what to look for, however, is the shape of the child's head, combined with two marks on what appears to be the child's hair. The image bears a strong resemblance to a particular member of our galactic families known as the Greys. The description above describes the child first and the native man as the reflection. If this is a disclosure hint, it would suggest that our galactic families were here first and that humans became a reflection of them existing in our childlike 3D world. 250,000 coins were minted and sold out in 34 hours. CVN spoke with the designer of the coin this afternoon, and he declined to comment on the intention behind the image. If true, what a wildly unique and wonderful way to immortalize disclosure. What technology is coming up next? About 20 years ago, I had a product that allowed me to put a specially designed mask over my eyes and head that used red LED lights that would help initiate the brainwave patterns that would make receiving subliminal information, like learning a language, easier. It was similar to being in a meditative state. Well, on May 20th, the London's Daily Mail reported that 2 developers from New York have now built a sleeping mask designed to allow people to control their dreams. This type of dreaming, called lucid dreaming, is something that can be learned by teaching oneself to look for signs in the dream that will allow the sleeper to recognize the dream. Once the dream is recognized, one can then begin to take control of the dream and move it forward. The spelling of the device is REMEE, and the exact pronunciation is not yet known at this time. It is believed to be REM-EASE. And according to the dailymail.co.uk website, the goal is to allow people to have dreams of their choice, such as driving a race car, to flying, to having lunch with your favorite personality or celebrity. The inside of the mask contains 6 red LED lights producing a flashing signal designed by the user. The lights are not bright enough to wake up the sleeper, but are bright enough to be recognized by the brain. There are 2 main phases of the sleep cycle, one being REM, REM, rapid eye movement, sleep, and non-REM, sleep. The device recognizes that the longer REM patterns occur in the early morning hours before waking, and enters the dream through the flashing lights. According to the website, the idea is simple. You are playing a perfect round of golf in a dream, and you see a pattern of red lights flashing in the distance. Because the pattern is in a particular sequence, it would signal to you that you are dreaming. Once you realize that you are in a dream, you can then decide what happens next, whether it be a quick trip to Antarctica or time travel. The company is advertising the masks for $95 and expects shipments to begin in August. The website is sleepwithremees.com. Links will be included on the summaries to this show. What a Gaia idea! Unless one has lived in a northern country such as Russia, Canada, and the Scandinavian countries, one may not fully grasp the joy that the spring season brings. As a Canadian who has lived in Sweden, I can say that the people of Scandinavia definitely know how to better enjoy the warmth and light that the season brings. The lengthening days bring youth, singles, couples, and families alike to crowd all the local parks, something rarely done in North America to the same extent. The month of May brings an end, however, to months of competitions all across Europe for the Eurovision Song Contest. The contest ranks among the most watched non-sporting events in the world, although historically has not received much coverage outside of Europe. The event offers a moment in time for Europeans to unite in a celebration of music in a variety of styles that the people of Europe can vote for. Last Saturday saw the country of Sweden take the overall prize this year. 28-year-old Loreen won with her song Euphoria. The Eurovision.tv profile page reports this artist describing herself as, quote, somewhat a loner, a seeker that steers away from the information overload of today. I have no TV set. I have a laptop, but I use it only for emails and music programs. I'm really impossible in this age of living your life in the digital space. The people I work with really hate that I'm not even in Facebook, unquote. Her goal, in her own words, is to unite people in the thought that there is much more to life than the materialistic aspects. For those familiar with Ashtanga Yoga and Vipassana, you may find some of her dance moves familiar, as she is an advocate of both. Her performance incorporates a spiritual approach with an important message, but also with an example of simply being. One verse from her song says that, "We are here. We're all alone in our own universe. We are free, where everything's allowed and love comes first. Forever and ever together, we sail into infinity. We're higher and higher and higher. We're reaching for divinity." The contest is not without its controversies, however. One controversy this year involved the Spanish artist Pastora Soler, who had allegedly been politely told not to win because under the contest rules, the winning country is the host to the following year's contest. And voices of influence in Spain have allegedly said it cannot afford such a contest and such an expense at this time. ABC Punto Radio in Spain had apparently quoted the artist as saying something very close to this. In another article on the Eurovision site, Australian broadcaster SBS offered an informal televote for Aussies to decide the winner, and it seems they were in agreement with Europe, also selecting Euphoria as the winning song. Not only the people of Europe, but also Australia seemed to resonate with the energies and perhaps the subtle message hinting at the coming global changes. Coming in second place was a group of singing grandmothers, or babushki, from Russia, perhaps the first time a group of senior citizens has done so well in the contest with their song Party for Everyone. For the moment of now, however, it is Sweden's time to once again enjoy the musical crown of Eurovision 2012. Så säger jag till den svenska folket, grattis för att vinna Eurovision-tävlingen för 2012. Although the lyrics are hard to make out, the show summary will post the lyrics or a link to the lyrics for anyone who is interested in the song. Here, with her winning song, Euphoria, is Loreen.
When I was minus 33 years old, the Eurovision Song Contest started in Switzerland. The first winner also came from Switzerland. Of course, everybody knows her name. And we're very proud that she is...
So that is the unfolding consciousness news around the world this week. Cosmic Vision News is a part of the Inlight radio group of programs heard at this local time each week. Thank you for sharing your time with me. I'm Jeffrey West, reminding you not to ask what you can take from the world that exists, but rather, what can you offer to the world that is awakening? Until our next moment of now, stay grounded in love and keep your eyes to the skies. Disclosure is unfolding all around you. Namaste.
This is Thank You White Knights, and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit thankyouwhiteknights.com. Thank You White Knights is supported by ExclusiveWellnessClub.com, manufacturers and distributors of wellness products for the health conscious such as MMS, MMS2, DMSO, MSM, Lugol's iodine and colloidal silver at ExclusiveWellnessClub.com. International shipping outside the United States available. Find the clickable link below.